She would silence our stadiums, put our teams on the brink. Hurricane Katrina changed the game, but she couldn't crush our spirit.
We got to win games to make the people of Louisiana feel better.
Out of the darkness of Hurricane Katrina, a brighter day for the teams, the athletes, the fans of New Orleans, how we got here and where we're headed. This is a special presentation of WDSU, Hurricane Katrina, 10 years forward, saving our spirit.
We're in the new Ullman Stadium on the campus of Tulane University. It opened less than a year ago and is part of the rebirth of the school's athletic program. Good evening, I'm Margaret Orr.
And I'm Scott Walker. We'll talk college and recreational sports in a bit, but we begin with sports anchor Fletcher Mackel at Champion Square with the city's flagship teams, the Saints and the Pelicans.
Two franchises many thought might not survive the aftermath of the storm.
We're living in the greatest time of professional sports in New Orleans. Both the Saints and the Pelicans are secure and profitable. Our grand stadiums have been renovated and renamed, and we have superstar athletes. And Anthony Davis and Drew Brees truly love New Orleans and do a great job representing all of us on the field and on the court. And the man who made all of this possible, Tom Benson. So last fall, this statue of Benson was erected in Champion Square. And it's truly a sign of how far we've come since Hurricane Katrina, because 10 years ago, no one would have believed any of this was possible. In the summer of 2005, both the Saints and the then New Orleans Hornets seemingly had one foot out the door. Hornets owner George Shinn was on shaky financial ground after relocating his team from Charlotte in 2002 and then buying out co-owner Ray Woolridge in 2003. As for Saints owner Tom Benson, he was considering a move to San Antonio.
Stanley Rosenberg, president of the Saints Board of Directors, told a San Antonio newspaper that Benson is interested in relocating the franchise. Rosenberg says, quote, Tom has a house in San Antonio, a ranch in San Antonio, and business interest in San Antonio. He likes San Antonio very much.
Those comments resulted in then Governor Kathleen Blanco questioning the Saints' long-term interest in Louisiana.
Another main goal that we were attempting to achieve is to have the Saints, to ensure the Saints' presence in Louisiana for another 20 to 25 years. You know, that may be part of the reason that they don't want to speak right now. Maybe they don't want to make that kind of long-term commitment.
But longtime journalists like Dave Lagarde and Brian Alley Walsh, two men who covered the Saints for a combined 70 years, never felt Benson's rhetoric pre-Katrina would become reality.
That's what NFL owners do, trying to squeeze the turnip a little bit more.
I always thought it was for business reasons. He was trying to get the best possible deal for himself.
But Hurricane Katrina was a deal breaker. With the Superdome and the New Orleans arena decimated, the Saints and the Hornets had to temporarily relocate. George Shinn took his team to Oklahoma City. And while reports of him flirting with a permanent move to the Sooner State were persistent, he repeatedly visited New Orleans and said he would be bringing his team back.
My goal is to very simple, do what's right.
Tom Benson relocated his team to the city Saints fans feared most, San Antonio. And Benson's silence spoke volumes. In the weeks and months following the storm, he never committed to returning to New Orleans, leading fans and members of the media to assume Benson was attempting to leave New Orleans during the city's greatest time of need.
I think that Tom Benson is a despicable man.
I look at this situation about it being as close to irreparable harm as you can possibly find. The man's basically sabotaged everything here with the fans, with the media.
He was getting buried by the media because of the whole switch and move, and we all understood as a business, he put a lot of money and a lot of energy in his franchise, and he didn't know what he was going back to neither.
Will Smith is one of the Saints' most decorated players. He joined the organization as a first-round draft pick in 2004, and he was a captain on the 2009 Super Bowl squad. But in 2005, like the fans and the media, he says the players also started to believe a permanent move to Texas was in the works.
Mr. B, he didn't really tell us much because he didn't really know what the situation was. So the head coach, he couldn't tell us. No one actually knew. And then once we realized that you know, there's a possibility we won't even ever go back to New Orleans. Then it was like, well, now I got to move again. And, you know, I don't think too many people were happy about San Antonio.
And no one was happy with Tom Benson.
We had lost our house in New Orleans. We had friends and family that were suffering, okay? So here all of a sudden you have now a businessman that is using his team as a leverage point to try and strike a better deal or to even possibly move the team. Okay, yeah, I mean, that struck a chord. I got to be honest with you, I don't think anybody that was around them in the San Antonio situation didn't feel that way, okay? How could you do this? How could you even begin to try to broker a deal at the expense of a city that was underwater, struggling just to stay above water, and having all the problems it did? It was an ugly, ugly time.
So the NFL and then Commissioner Paul Tagliabue stepped in to assist the Saints.
The city owes a debt of gratitude to the man who preceded the guy we love to hate as the commissioner, and that's Goodell. I'm talking about Tagliabue. I think he told Benson in no uncertain terms, you're not leaving that city high and dry.
Paul Tagliabue has never once taken credit for returning the Saints to New Orleans. In fact, he's repeatedly said the decision was made solely by Tom Benson. It just took Benson and his leadership team 4 months following Hurricane Katrina to officially announce their plans.
Do you think you could have said something earlier, or is this timely in your matter to wait 4 months if you want to be a leader in the rebuilding?
Well, I think the focus is on the good news today that we're coming back, not on what's happened. I mean, anyone can second guess anything that everyone has done, and everyone has second guessed what not only what we've done, but what every leader in the community has done.
And once the Saints returned, no one second guessed what Benson did. Peyton, Breeze, the block, the kick, Lombardi. On the field, Benson's decisions post-Katrina ushered in the greatest run in franchise history. Off the field, Benson's efforts in the community rebuilt his reputation with a passionate fan base who felt one with the team.
That's why we were so good. That's why we started winning, because it wasn't just about the players and the teammates and, you know, trying to win games just to go to the playoffs. It's like we got to win games to make the people of Louisiana feel better.
And since 2005, Tom Benson has made Louisiana better, working tirelessly and giving tens of millions of dollars to various schools, charities, and endeavors he believes in.
I think that has really helped his legacy over and above finally getting the team to the Super Bowl and winning it.
Benson even expanded his sports empire. In 2012, he purchased the Hornets. As promised, George Shinn brought the team back from Oklahoma City following Hurricane Katrina. And while they had tremendous success during the 2007-2008 campaign, Shinn continued to deal with financial hardships, forcing him to sell the franchise back to the NBA in 2010. Commissioner David Stern wanted to keep the franchise in New Orleans, but with viable suitors in Seattle, San Jose, and Louisville, many thought the team was gone, until Tom Benson stepped up with a $340 million check and saved the day.
They were going to fly the coop. They'd have flown the coop as the Hornets. So that we never would have had the Pelicans, and we'd never have this gift that's Anthony Davis.
The good that Tom has done as both a businessman and a local citizen far outweigh any negative things that have come under his 30 years in the sports empire business.
In 2012, many of the media who criticized Benson after Hurricane Katrina selected him for induction into the Saints Hall of Fame. And in 2014, the Tom Benson statue was erected in Champion Square. So in 10 years, Tom Benson has truly gone from pariah to messiah.
Tom deserves this kind of appreciation from a fan base.
I think they're going to remember all the great things he's done for this city. He loves the city and loves the people of New Orleans.
Tom deserves a statue in his honor.
The Pelicans' long-term deal with the state of Louisiana runs through 2024, the Saints through 2025. Scott and Margaret, back to you.
According to Forbes magazine, Tom Benson is Louisiana's richest man. He has a net worth of $1.9 billion.
And the field that we're standing on here at Yulman Stadium is named Benson Family Field because of the large donation Tom Benson made to Tulane Athletics.
Up next, two schools in turmoil, two very different paths, 10 years forward. How Hurricane Katrina created a divide between Tulane and UNO, and where their athletic programs stand today.
Here on the campus of Tulane University, the green wave are rolling, but that's not the case at the lakefront. UNO has struggled post-Katrina.
Sports anchor Sharif Ishak tells us why New Orleans' two Division I universities have gone in different directions 10 years after Katrina.
May 3rd, 2005, Tulane and UNO squared off at Zephyr Field in a baseball game that was a true nail-biter. The Wave won a thriller 7-6, and that was the last time these two universities were close in athletics.
This is the levee that broke, and this is the flow of the water.
Since Katrina, Tulane has rebounded in a big way, spending over $100 million on new stadiums like Turchin and Yulman, as well as new facilities. They've also added new sports like beach volleyball and bowling. But on the lakefront, things have never been the same for UNO. It's been a struggle to keep athletics afloat. So why are two schools that were pretty close 10 years ago going in opposite directions?
Before Katrina, the UNO job, and I'd had some pretty good jobs, but the UNO job was the most fun I ever had. It was terrific.
Jim Miller was UNO athletics director from 2003 to 2009. He said the athletes and coaches like Tom Walter and Monty Tao were excited to be at UNO, and everything was headed in a very positive direction.
We were making our budget. You know, we had 17,300 students at UNO, and living off student fees, that's sufficient. That's enough revenue to do what we wanted to do.
And then Katrina moved into the Gulf.
Actually, I'd stopped by City Park to do a little chipping on the driving range. Tim Ryan, the chancellor, had called a meeting of his staff, senior staff, on Saturday morning. And he said, you know, this is going to be, looks like a pretty bad storm, as we all knew. But he says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shut down for the weekend, and then hopefully we'll convene on Monday.
Katrina ravaged UNO's lakefront campus. So returning to the lakefront on Monday for Miller and the staff never happened.
We all moved to Baton Rouge. We tried to run the campus out of there, tried to make plans.
Other universities around the country welcomed privateer teams to their campuses for the fall semester. So student athletes were scattered all over the country, from Shreveport to Tyler, Texas, and as far west as New Mexico.
After a while, we learned that we could get back in January, which we did, but then we had all the issues of housing, and the facilities were still not up. We couldn't play in our arena, which turned out to be the biggest problem because we were out of our arena for three years. We probably lost almost half the student body.
The school went from an enrollment of 17,000 to 8,000, which really hurt the athletics as UNO went from 15 to 6 programs.
We didn't know if the student enrollment would come back.
In the years following the storm, UNO athletics found some success. The baseball team made the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years in 2007 and 2008. So university leaders tried to get the votes to pass a student fee increase, but they fell short.
I saw tears, a lot of tears from the athletes, men and women. And it was sad because I was tearing up myself. Ron Maestri, who was at that press conference, got in front of the mic, and I saw him tearing up.
I don't hear the legislature, I don't hear the Board of Supervisors, I hear nobody talking about the University of New Orleans, and it upsets me.
And after the vote failed in 2009, Miller retired as athletics director of UNO because he couldn't see a direction, and the direction former President Tim Ryan wanted to go was down, dropping from Division I to non-scholarship Division III.
I didn't come here to get us exactly like we were before Katrina. I came here to move us further along than before Katrina.
Peter Foss has been UNO president since 2012. And a few months into his new role, the UNO graduate stopped the university from going ahead with the planned move of dropping down.
After a great deal of thought, due diligence, speaking to everyone I could talk to, including NCAA, I decided that we had to remain Division I.
UNO would eventually find a new home in the Southland Conference in the 2013 and 2014 academic year. UNO currently has 14 programs operating on a $5.5 million budget, one of the lowest in the country. And getting the money hasn't been easy, but Foss and his staff have gotten the job done.
No money comes from the general fund athletics, which is very unusual. They do it all on sponsors, ticket sales, and they actually have an endowment that helps them run their organization.
And remember that fee that didn't get enough votes in 2009? Well, the students have come around.
My students on campus are clamoring to opportunity to have an election, a referendum to have a fee. So I'm optimistic that we can get more support from the students.
But will they ever get near the level playing field of Tulane again?
Tulane's situation has always been ahead of the curve because they can make their own decisions. UNO's situation has always been that they're behind the curve, and a lot of times they get kicked to the curb.
Public or private, no one was spared the wrath of Hurricane Katrina. The Green Wave Athletic Department was also kicked to the curb.
Basically, we knew we were looking at a train wreck. You know, our campus had incurred over $700 million of damage.
Rick Dixon has been Tulane's athletic director for 16 years, and he saw that damage carry over to the athletics as they dropped from 16 to 8 programs.
Well, probably one of the darkest days, you know, for me. You like being part of providing opportunity for young people. In this instance, we were forced to take away opportunity, and when you see the, you know, the heartbreak and pain that comes with that, that's a difficult thing. 2
of the sports they dropped that never came back were men's golf and women's soccer. But Dixon had a 5-year master plan that would push athletics in an even better direction.
It wasn't like flipping a switch. People had to make commitments, had to donate money. The university had to make a conscious decision. This is where we want to go. It would have been very easy, you know, when you're flat on your back, just to go the other way and say it wasn't meant to be.
But it was meant to be. And it all started in the spring of 2008 when they brought back women's tennis and women's swimming and diving.
Being at those first events, you know, gave us that hope, you know, that we all needed. It was like seeing the first house or office building reopen and those things. You know, it was an important step, you know, in the healing and the rebuilding of this thing.
Personally, the healing process for Dixon is ongoing. Professionally, his athletic department is completely healed. In the last 10 years, through university support and private donations, Tulane has been able to build Turchin Stadium, Yulman Stadium, the Hurt Center, and revitalize Devlin Fieldhouse. On top of that, Tulane is up to 15 sports. And since joining the American Athletic Conference, most estimate the operating budget for Green Wave Athletics is between $40 and $50 million annually.
There probably hasn't been a day in that 10 years that I don't think of those kids and the people, you know, that sacrificed and felt like, you know what, I've got a responsibility to them. Because when somebody puts it all on the line and it's taken away, you know, that carves a deep hole in you, and I just felt responsible, you know, to bring that back and in a way that we'd never been able to do here.
And November 6th is going to be a special day for Dixon and Tulane. The entire 2005-2006 Hurricane Katrina class will get inducted into the Tulane Athletics Hall of Fame. That's 308 student athletes. As for UNO, Peter Foss says they're thinking about adding football in the coming years, which would create a lot of revenue for the school and athletics. Scott?
Other local college programs have rebuilt in the years following Hurricane Katrina. Dillard's Dent Hall, home of the Blue Devils men's and women's basketball teams, was completely renovated. Xavier University built a state-of-the-art arena, and Delgado rebuilt its baseball field and added lights.
Still to come, the changing face of our community and the games we play when Katrina 10 years forward continues.
Katrina reshaped the playing field across the Gulf Coast, not just for the pros and college athletes, but it changed the way we play the game in our own backyards and in neighborhood parks.
For volleyball, Coconut Beach moved from the lakefront to Kenner because the Army Corps of Engineers put pumping stations where the courts used to be.
A new tennis center has been built in City Park, and a championship golf course is currently under construction there.
But as WDSU anchor Randy Russo tells us, the sport that's really getting its kick since Katrina is soccer.
Soccer fields have sprouted all over New Orleans, with people from all sorts of backgrounds taking to the field to try their foot at the world's most popular game.
That's what this country is. It's a melting pot. And this is what you see here.
As a native of Honduras and retired Army colonel, Cesar Archoa grew up playing the game of soccer, a love he carried over to New Orleans when he moved here more than 40 years ago.
Since you were a kid, you almost you grow up with a soccer ball in your feet, in your hand.
In just the past decade, Archoa has noticed big changes in the sport locally, specifically its growth post-Katrina.
The amount of people that are playing soccer nowadays is just amazing to me. It seems like there's a soccer field everywhere you go.
Prior to the storm's landfall in 2005, the league in which Archoa plays touted 160 members. Now, participation has doubled, something organizers attribute to the rise of the Hispanic and Latino population.
Oh, they came here to help. They helped the city, and they ended up staying, so that's the big boom that we have.
The New Orleans Metro boasts a diversity within its Hispanic community not seen in most cities. 43% of all Latinos in the metro area are from countries in Central America. Hispanics are the fastest growing demographic in our community, and the boom carries over to neighboring parishes as well. In Jefferson Parish, more than 13% of all residents are Latino, nearly 10% of St. Bernard. But wherever they hail from, whatever their former flag, chances are there's soccer in their soul.
2 new leagues in New Orleans were actually born out of Katrina, sporting anywhere from 200 to 350 members each.
After Katrina, we have a lot more people coming in town. They want to have teams, and they're looking for a spot to play.
Prieto and Edgardo Canales created the Pelican Soccer League in 2005. Today, they have a little more than 350 players.
We knew these people, we need some kind of recreation, you know, because, there was no places, no bar, nothing to enjoy, you know. And so we started the league, you know, and we have a lot of people coming, you know, and since that time, you know, everything is growing more and more and getting more popular, you know.
To serve the next generation of soccer players here in the New Orleans area, Prieto says he is going to start a school to teach some of these kids the ins and outs of the sport and to get more referees out on the field to cater to the growing number of players.
We'd like to see maybe on the weekends, we have a lot of people interested in teaching kids to play, and also adults to be referees. So we like to have a school to do all this. It's going to be little by little, but we're going to do it.
Something else the men hope to score one day, a Major League Soccer team. While the MLS hasn't seriously considered New Orleans for expansion, the people we spoke to say that if the growth and support continues here locally, that dream could one day be reality.
Something to look forward to perhaps in the next decade. Thanks for joining us for a look at local sports 10 years forward.
College football season begins next weekend. The NFL season is 2 weeks away. We'll see you at the stadium.